have to be careful with our words if we're going to argue technical points. When you say he can do it, of course he can. He can talk about a physical ability. May he do it? Yes, he may. Is he permitted to do so by religion? No, he isn't. When we're talking about accusations, charges, sin, and things, similar things, we must be very precise in our language. You're not being very precise in your language.
How so?
And your endless repetition of the word absurd or ridiculous is not refutations. They're simply denials. They're simply assertions without proof.
No, well, I've already given the proof. You just keep denying it over and over again. And you deny the dogma that heretics are outside the church. And I said that he cannot do these things and remain Catholic. That's a fact.
Allow me, and if I may, an attempt at refutation.
Go ahead.
It is I'm trying to get a clarification of your position. Your position is, tell me if I'm wrong, please, that a pope loses his status when he becomes a heretic, even if it is only, say, an internal conviction. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, the internal conviction may not be manifested by some outward behavior. Is that correct?
I guess it's theoretically possible, but I'm not aware of any case in history.
I understand that. But the point is that one may be a heretic, and let's say one becomes a heretic 2 hours before he dies and doesn't have a chance to manifest it outwardly. Possible?
Possible.
Okay. Now, is it also possible that records of manifest heretical behavior of earlier popes were not recorded in history?
Can you repeat the question?
Is it possible that manifested, that is, physically outward behaviors of a heretical nature were not recorded in history?
No, it's not possible, because the goodness of the church, if you're basically supposing that you could have a privately heretical pope and he never manifested, no, the goodness of the church would require, God's goodness, that if someone were in fact a heretic, he would manifest that heresy, okay, so that the faithful could know. And furthermore, the church can supply jurisdiction to certain acts, okay, even of a heretical prelate, but he can't maintain the office. But furthermore, I would add that all of this is completely irrelevant, because John Paul II and Benedict XVI are not private heretics. They're as public as you can be. Okay, so it's really a divergence, and it's beside the point completely to talk even about this, because we're not talking about public. We're talking about guys who publish these things in their encyclicals. They publish these things in their council. They publish them in their catechism. They demonstrate them in their trips to the buildings and the temples of false religions. Okay, so they're public as public can be. Another question I would ask you, are you familiar with Pope Innocent?
A moment ago you said we're not talking about public. That was a misstatement, right? You didn't mean to say that.
If I said that, I didn't mean to say that.
Okay, fine. So we are talking about public things.
They are definitely public, yeah.
Okay, so what you're holding is the following. Any act by any heretical pope in roughly the last 2,000 years would not only have been noticed by other people, but would have been recorded in history. Is that correct?
I don't think that that's an accurate assessment. No, I would say that any manifestly heretical man claiming to be pope, okay, would have been noticed by people.
Okay, that wasn't what I asked.
That was what you asked, essentially.
Okay, would those actions, which in your opinion would have been noticed by people, would those actions necessarily have been recorded in history and be available to us now?
If someone was manifestly heretical, they would have been recorded in history. And in fact, the saints and doctors who surveyed papal history, they even look at all the cases of papal error and papal scandal, and they still concluded that there's nothing whatsoever that contradicts the truth that a heretic cannot be pope but would lose his office.
Well, was that a yes?
Your question was not phrased in a proper way to deliver a yes or no answer.
That those actions by previously heretical popes, which were noticed by at least some of the people of their day, must have been recorded in history and must be available to us.
Correct. If they were clearly heretical, quote, popes, which they would have been recorded in history and noticed by people. Yes, that's why Honorius we have clear evidence of that. And so...
And wait. And you're saying this must be true because God would have ordained and mandated it?
Because God watches over the goodness of the church, and the church teaches that...
Is that a yes?
Yes, because, as I said,
good.
You like to ask some person the same question over and over again.
Is this a dogma of the Catholic Church?
Is what a dogma?
That God must force historians to record this, and God must preserve those historical records?
It flows from dogma. There are principles called dogmatic facts.
Yes or a no, please?
Can I answer your question?
Yes. Would a yes or no?
I did. I answered. I said, no, it's not a dogma, but it flows from dogma. There are dogmatic facts such as that flow directly from dogmatic truths and which are wrapped up in the promises of Christ to the church. And they're called dogmatic facts.
And this is, in your opinion, a dogmatic fact?
Yes. But what is a dogma is that a heretic is not a member of the church.
So what you're teaching as a fact related to dogma is, in fact, your opinion. Is that correct?
No, it's not.
Not your opinion?
No.
I'm sorry. I asked before if that was your opinion, that it was a dogmatic fact. You said yes.
No, you didn't, and I didn't say that.
Okay. I remember you saying yes. I'll ask you again. Is this your opinion that it is a dogmatic fact?
No, it's not.
Okay. So you hold it's not a dogmatic fact.
Right. I hold that it's inextricably bound up with the promises of Christ to His church.
And this is based on your own reasoning?
It's based on the teaching of the church.
Is a teaching in the church that mentions this?
It flows from a number of teachings that God would be with His church. You ask me questions and you don't let me answer them.
Well,
okay?
Answer yes or no. Is it mentioned?
Not all questions are yes or no. Just like when I asked you in the email, do you accept Vatican II? You said maybe, maybe not. Okay, so...
But I'm asking about a simple fact. You were asking about my opinion. I gave my opinion, and my opinion is...
Vin, you're showing your bad will, and you are definitely of bad will, that you are diverting from the incontrovertible fact that heretics are not Catholic. That's a dogma which you reject, and that's why you're a heretic. And let me ask you a question. Do you believe that Pope Innocent...
By the way.
Go ahead.
Simply allow me at this point to accuse you of diverting the conversation so I'm not able to refute you. Go ahead.
That you just asked me 10, 15 questions. I get to ask you some questions.
Number 19 destroys your position, but that's all right. Go ahead.
Say number 19?
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, you said I asked you about 15. I had about 4 more to go. But that's all right.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Ask me 4 more, and then I'll ask you some more.
Okay. All right. It is your position, if I understand it correctly, dogmatically, that certain things have to be recorded, but it is also your position that this is not written anywhere or declared by any council. Is that correct?
What is declared by a council is that heretics are not members of the church. Okay, it's a dogmatic fact. You're going to have to let me answer the question, okay? Okay, it's a dogma of the church that heretics are not members of the church. And the dogmatic fact flowing from that is that heretics cannot be popes. It thus follows that if you ever had a heretic claiming to be the pope, the goodness of God, would make sure that that was manifested so that the faithful would be able to reject that person. Okay? But even if you were to hold your position that he wouldn't manifest it, then someone wouldn't necessarily be culpable for following him unless it were manifested. But all this is completely irrelevant because John Paul II and Benedict XVI are manifest heretics.
Okay, I understand your position, and now I think you've made it clear, and I will consider that at least a response, if not a direct answer. Are you infallible when you make that statement?
I'm infallible when I reiterate the dogmas of the church. I'm infallible when the position that a heretic cannot be pope is, I'm definitely infallible when I say that, yes. Yes, I'm infallible when I say that a heretic cannot be the pope.
No, not what I'm asking. The mandated historical records which are preserved and passed down to us, therefore, is that an infallible statement? That's not even a complete sentence. Okay.
The mandated historical records that are passed down to us.
Yeah.
That's not a complete sentence.
No, you're correct, and I will correct it, and thank you. Your position that these records will be mandated by God and preserved mandated by God and passed down to us, if they were ever to exist. Is that an infallible statement on your part?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, the point is, therefore...
Are you done, or you have some more questions?
Well, I have one... No, you know what? Go ahead.
Okay. Do you believe that Pope Innocent III, at the Fourth Lateran Council, are you familiar with the first infallible definition, there's one universal church of the faithful, outside of which no one at all is saved?
Yes.
You've probably read that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do you believe that that's binding and infallible?
Sure.
On what basis?